I learned that anytime that you're relying on technology to create your art or to do a performance of any kind, you have to be really prepared for like the worst to happen. You have to have a team that knows, like, hey, if this happens, you need to tell me immediately so that I can, restart it on my end or I can do this, right?
Welcome back to another episode of the Making Magic podcast. I'm Shaun Jay, your host, and I'm a professional magician, speaker, and 3D designer. And this is all about inspiring conversations with the movers, the shakers, the visionaries, and the makers, the wizards behind the curtain that make the magic for you. Now, if this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you so much for doing so. It really does mean a lot to me because I put a lot of hard work into each and every one of these episodes. Whether you're listening to the sound of my voice on any one of the popular podcast apps or on YouTube, hopefully you'll decide, if you're a podcast type of person, that you'll follow the show. Follow me along for the ride and leave a healthy review of the show. And if you're here on YouTube, feel free to give this show a thumbs up, comment below, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. You guys know what to do because I'm all about getting your creative gears turning, and that's what this show is all about. Whether you feel like you're stuck with a certain thought pattern and you want to break out of your current thought pattern, if you feel boxed in and trying to be inspired to think in new ways, well, I've got some of the world's most creative people that are sharing their process with you on this show. So I hope you decide to join me on the journey, and I'll be releasing episodes like every week now, so I hope you guys are enjoying this stuff. So with all that being said, let's learn a little bit more about our next guest. Hey, Creatress, welcome to the Making Magic podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun chat. This is going to be a deep dive. Now, for those of you who don't know who Creatress is, your actual name is Sarai Mora. Is that correct? Did I say it right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. She's got a very interesting name, and she has a very interesting profession, a very interesting career. She's a VR performance artist, and she's actively transmuting, translating sound and subtle electromagnetic energy from the audience into organic colors, shapes, and textures that make these really cool collaborative 3D sculptures. And she's doing a lot in the metaverse right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think it's fun to hear it from someone else. But yeah, that's exactly what I do is I try to translate the energy that I feel during my performances and just the energy that I'm getting from the audience or just the music playing, which sometimes is a DJ, sometimes it's my playlist that I curate for these performances.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just find it fascinating, and you're a great choice as a guest for the show because this show is all about getting your creative gears turning, hence the gears behind my head here. And
Love
you
it.
seem to, yeah, thanks. And you seem to be someone who's in that category very much in the creative space, literally creating things from nothing. So we're going to get into that. And I'd like you to share with the audience a story of the very first thing that you ever created, whether it be VR art or maybe another type of art that was in your past.
Um, Geez, that's hard to say. The very first thing, I don't know. It was probably like watercolors in kindergarten or something. But I'll say the first thing in VR, at least, since
Yeah.
that's the art form that I'm focused on right now. I made this, it looked almost like a spacecraft, but like a very abstract one. And I actually thought it looked slightly, very slightly like a butterfly. So I ended up calling it extrasolar butterfly craft. And that was one of the first things I actually minted. And that's just like one of the first things I ever even made in Gravity Sketch. Just like from getting the Oculus, putting it on, trying it out. And yeah, there's videos and photos on my Instagram if anyone wants to see it.
Interesting. This extrasolar butterfly, which I've seen, and it's since had many different variations and colors and styles, right?
Yeah, yeah. And now they're not so much crafts, right? Like the first one was a craft because it looked like something that would fly around, not so much a sentient being. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're just extrasolar butterflies, right? So now I'm kind of working with the concept of the butterfly and imagining all of these flying through space. But
Okay.
they are beings. They are not like it's not like an airplane that people would fly or astronauts would fly in. It's an actual being that's flying through space that lives on an exoplanet out there, and some of them are assigned planets. But I'm just very interested in all the space everything, sci-fi stuff, all of it. So it just yeah, it's just some been evolving.
Okay. Awesome. So it's like it's almost like a Pokemon. It just continues to evolve nonstop.
Yeah, yeah, you could say that. I did watch Pokemon as a child. And then my son, he also, went through a whole Pokemon phase, cards. So, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way though.
It's just another way of thinking about it, another way of thinking of things. That's what this
Yeah,
show is all about, thinking in different ways. And
yeah.
once you dove into VR to design this, was there any particular reason why you made it? Like, why was it a butterfly, or was it something that just organically developed into the butterfly?
Well, the first one, it just naturally emerged, right? I was just playing with the tools and I looked
Okay.
at it afterwards. I'm like, wait a minute, this has first definitely the craft, and then I saw the butterfly form. And then, I mean, the butterflies as a symbol have just been in my life for a long time. My grandmother loves them, and she would always wear them. And she would have these butterfly frames in her house, right? You've seen the frames with the different butterflies mounted. But she took it a step further and made like window panels in her home, like
Oh,
with these like with flowers and branches, and so like still lives, but with butterflies, right? And even I remember she had a coffee table that if you look down on it, it was a still life as well, like of butterflies and different things that she had collected. And then later on, I realized her father, so my great grandfather, actually taught her that and had been doing this type of artwork his whole life, essentially. Um, Come to find out, he even left a whole collection, and it was being displayed at a museum when I went to visit one year.
wow.
And this was when I was 10 years old that I found out. So that's like that made a huge impression on me. And so insects and butterflies are specifically symbols that represent family and ancestry and metamorphoses, not just of like a person, but it's like my great grandfather passed it down to my grandmother, passed it down to me, and it just is iterating in different realities now. Like I brought this concept that I worked on in watercolor. I also did the butterfly frames after she taught me, and then I went and brought it into VR, which is just like another dimension, another iteration.
Mm. Well, and when you say still life, do you mean literally? Because I've heard of, for instance, I believe my grandma had, or my mother told me something about when she was younger. That it's a thing to actually collect real butterflies, or
Hmm.
butterflies that have died, and make this little display piece out of this, just to admire the beauty of nature. Is that what you're referring to, or is this just a painted
Yeah.
piece or a drawn piece?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like collecting the butterflies, right, from your garden once they've passed on. And
Oh,
actually, like you actually have to rehydrate them and then open up the wings, dry them, and then you can put them in. It's a whole process, which you wouldn't, I don't know, I was surprised how long it took. It's like a multi-day process. But yeah, that's what I mean. But before I even tried to do that, I remember being in art school and drawing, not drawing, painting in watercolor a butterfly.
mm,
Well, I guess I did first draw it and then I watercolored over it. But like, and I did it in pastels, I remember. So it's just like a thing that I've constantly created in the different mediums that I've tried. So I think yeah.
nice. Okay. Well, it definitely the symbology runs deep, and it means a lot to you and your family. So that makes sense, and it's nice that you are keeping the tradition alive in just a modern day version of that.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Exactly how I'd put it.
and when you first made this initial solar butterfly creation, were there any specific lessons that you learned from it? Just whether it be art related lessons or anything about yourself that you discovered while making this?
Well, on the VR side, I learned that back in the day, you couldn't mint 3D sculptures, which is exactly what that is, right? It's a 3D sculpture
Hmm.
made in virtual reality. Um, so what I had to do was find a way to work around that. I said, how can I mint this artwork and make it available for someone to purchase it if I can't upload the 3D file? So what I learned was that you can take video capture in VR. So there's just an option where you go and essentially it's screen record.
Hmm.
If you ever use screen record on your phone or on your computer, it essentially records everything that's happening that you're seeing in real time. So that's what I ended up doing was I started to screen record inside my VR studio where the artwork was. And another thing you can do is while you're recording, you're essentially recording with your head. So wherever you're looking, that's going to be um, on screen later. Um, but your hands can still do things, right? So you still have your controllers. And if you hold them far down enough, they won't show up in the in the recording. So I could
Exactly.
actually kind of move the sculptures around almost like a puppet in a way, like a puppeteer, and kind of choreograph what I wanted them to do for the video. So that was kind of fun. Like I wouldn't have figured that out if I had been able to just upload 3D files. And now fast forward to now, you can upload 3D files, but it was still good to learn. And I feel like I've continued to take videos in VR pretty often because it just looks so cool. And it's just like a super, um, it's just an organic way to show off the sculptures because they were made in a 3D virtual studio. What better way than a video of that
Yeah,
to explain them? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's fascinating because for anybody that hasn't tried immersing into VR, it's pretty a magical, mind blowing experience, and you need to kind of ease into it because the first time I went into it, I could really only take about 10 minutes. Because it was a bit disorienting, but of course you build
Oh,
up.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, and you build up your tolerance per se. Your body kind of
Yeah.
learns to understand it a little bit better. So it's very unique way of doing things. And another term that you had mentioned that my viewers or listeners might not be familiar with. I'm familiar with it, but when you said minting artwork, we're referring to taking a piece of artwork and kind of claiming it or verifying it as yours in the blockchain of cryptocurrency, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, what you're really doing is putting it on there. You're making it You're making a token essentially that represents that artwork. It's kind of like giving it a certificate of authenticity when you sell it and
Hmm.
signing it. But this is a public one that everyone can see the time, the place. So yeah, it's a little bit more. We like to think that it's going to last forever, much longer than a piece of paper that says authentic would last. So yeah,
Okay.
to
Okay.
put it simply,
Yeah.
to not get too in the weeds, it'll just say that.
Right. 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 It gets pretty. It's there's a very steep learning curve to NFTs and cryptocurrency as I find out with the things that I learned and know. It's kind of like anything. I mean, once you know, you know, but it really takes
Hmm.
some focused attention in that area to fully understand the inner workings of NFTs, of
Right.
cryptocurrency, acquiring cryptocurrency, selling your creations. It's quite the thing. So that's your world for past how many years have you been into this kind of world?
NFTs, I'd say almost 2 years, but cryptocurrency, I did trade a little bit a couple years before that. So, yeah, I mean, just a couple years, I'd say. But it is it is the way of the world that is evolving right now. Um, just yesterday, I believe it was the United States that just announced that they're going to be doing it's a cryptocurrency in a way. It's not exactly a cryptocurrency, but it's a way to track every transaction instead of, as a way to almost replace cash. It's really interesting. And while I don't know, it seems they said it's just a test that they're going to be
Hmm.
doing. It's just, I think it's a signal to what is to come. And I think cryptocurrency, like if you were paying attention at any point, it's a good way to almost prepare for that, right? And yeah, I don't know, everything will develop on its time. I think everyone is slowly getting more and more familiar with it. It's in the
Hmm.
news all the time. If you're on Twitter at all, it's there. People are talking about it daily. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before we get mass adoption, honestly.
Mm. So people got to get with the times, and you heard it here on the Making Magic podcast. Creatress has dipped into this, and it is relative. Now that I was thinking about even the question, it's a relatively new thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, 2 years you were probably. Well, then again, Bitcoin. Now that I think about it, I have a friend who did some Bitcoin trading, and Bitcoin's been
Yeah.
going on for, I believe, since before 2020. It's been 2018, 2017. I think were the earlier stages of that.
I think it's been about 12 years. Yeah, since the first Bitcoin was mined. But I don't take my word for it. Look it up, you guys. DYOR, do your own research. Um, Always super important in crypto. I think that's like the most important thing.
Yes, don't go in it blind because you can make very poor choices and lose lots of money.
Yeah, definitely. So
Happens.
do your research. Yeah.
Happens all the time. Okay. And what about something that you have recently made? Tell us about what popped into your head and what you recently created from the ether.
Um, well, the very last thing I created was a sculpture during a performance in LA. It was a super exciting performance. I got to do the opening act for the Innovation Summit. It's the first annual Innovation Summit, and it was put on by Paris Hilton's company 1111 Media. And it was just, I mean, it was incredible. They had the most beautiful screen. It was just a gorgeous LED display. that I got to use, and I got to try the new Meta Quest Pro headset that just released like last month, and it's been on my list of things that I wanted to try. So it was just incredible. So I did my usual performance. I made a playlist that was about 35 minutes. That's how long it was going to be. And I just went with the flow. I went up there, I had a few ideas about what I wanted to create, but it really was more connecting with what I was feeling in the room, connecting with the music. And I had a few songs that I'd never performed live too. So that's always kind of like a new experience. Like I'm up there and there's just so many things happening, right? There's just like the input from the audience, the input from the music. I'm trying to tap into what color I'm hearing or I'm feeling. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, what tool do I use? Because then you have tons of different tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being it was an abstract butterfly, and the background. This was the first time that I ever did this. Was I actually created an HDR file, which is essentially like a 360 photograph, and I uploaded it to be my virtual studio. So when you were in there, everywhere you looked, you could it was just like pink, fluffy clouds,
Nice.
and the sky behind it. Yeah, and it just I don't know. I felt like that would fit the vibe of the event, and then yeah, I created a butterfly inside that environment. And let's see what else. I also included a few names in the sculpture. I find that the body of the butterfly can be kind of like a skeleton looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes write out names during the performance, and I kind of turn them around and make them part of the kind of like the butterfly's exoskeleton.
Wow.
So I did that for this one as well. Yeah.
That's pretty deep. There's a lot of food for thought there. Just the process behind the process. There's
Thank you.
yeah, it's a powerful tool. Designing in VR, designing in Gravity Sketch, and knowing what you know right now about just everything that you've involved yourself with, whether it be crypto, Ethereum, Bitcoin, blockchain, VR art. If you were to go in a magic time machine and go back a few years, is there anything that you would tell your younger self to prevent you from making any of the mistakes that you made earlier on?
Maybe I would have said the board apes aren't that boring. Like, it's okay. Maybe you should collect one. Let's see. I think I think I might have told myself to just go ahead and like try to create a really big collection. I think for a long time I was just like very hesitant. I'm like, oh no, that's just like too much. But looking back on it, like so many artists that I admire have done that, and it wasn't, as big of a, or I don't know, it just I could have done it is all I'm saying, and so I think maybe take more risks is kind of the bottom line.
Take more risks and be sure to get the one of the board apes. Probably get on board with the board apes earlier
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
before they blew up,
for
right?
sure. I was there on the very early days. I could have, I just didn't, you know. The art
Right.
didn't speak to me.
That's
So,
the way those things always
yeah.
go. It's kind of like you have no clue what the success or failure rate of something like that's going to be, so it's pretty easy just to pass on it. And then when you see it blow up, you go, "Man, I was like right there. I could have, but I did
Yeah.
not."
It's all good though. It's all good. We're making our way. We're making our way through. Anyway.
Exactly. Now, are there any maker techniques that you are excited about learning in the upcoming year? Because at the time of this recording, we're actually towards the end of the year, towards the end of 2022. So in the upcoming year, is there anything like that's on the cusp of development that you're interested in taking a peek into to add to your skill set?
I like to try some AR glasses or some AR headsets. I'd like to create with some AR tools, I think. I mean, I've created filters using the 3D sculptures that I've made,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it'd be cool to also just create an AR. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's working on that. I'm sure they are. So yes, I'd like to try that. Any new apps to 3D model or to paint in VR, I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to try. I have a whole list of apps that I'm just waiting to try as soon as I get a free moment. Um, and the other thing I want to try is I really just I really want to think I really want to try to do a painting or a sculpture in Times Square, taking
Oh,
up like a big section of it, and I think that would be really sweet. If that's even possible. I don't know if the screens only do like pre-recorded videos or if they can handle like a live thing, but I think
oh,
if
you
someone
mean
can do that,
like an in the moment
yeah,
streaming performance on their
exactly.
big screen? Yeah, that would be epic.
I really want to do that, so that's on my list. Yeah, just a few things. Yeah.
Just a few things, just a few minor goals there. I mean, it's no big deal, getting a live broadcast feed in Times Square. Nothing to it.
It'd be
Nothing.
cool. That's all I'm saying. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I just actually watched a video of a Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, New York song concert that was live in Times Square. This was a few years back,
Wow.
and I believe they put her name. They put some moving graphics on those screens in Times Square. So that made me think of that. Custom motion graphics as a show is going on. Whether that was a pre-recorded
Oh
video,
yeah. Yeah, I'd
I have
love
no
to
idea.
do. Well, I mean, it probably was pre-recorded, I would imagine. But man, yeah, that's the other element to it that I would want is to have a musician, like live music playing while I do that performance in Times Square.
Yeah.
I think that would be like epic. And I have a few friends who are musicians, but I also have like my dream musicians that I'd love to do that with. So we'll see one day. Fingers crossed.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Well, those are most people would think those are lofty goals, but I don't think no goal is too big for the legend that is Creatress, because I've seen you do some pretty epic things over just the
Thank
past
you.
time that I've known you. I believe it's been about a year that we've known each
Yeah, sounds
other,
about right.
and yeah, your work is fascinating, spreads far and wide, and it's got quite the community behind it. So that's what I like
Thank
about it.
you.
Yeah. What about any maker techniques that you would say that you are? So we talked about like a hypothetical, but what about something that you specific set of skills that you'd say you're great at right now? Like what's your forte? I mean, obviously VR art, but anything more specific?
I think I bring most of my skills from just like my past. I've always worked in art, so just like fundamental design um, ideas. I did video installation, right? So I think about my sculptures not just as, in the VR component, but I always think of how they're going to look in AR, how they're going to look in physical spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I'm done creating something, I usually get it on my phone so I can play with it in AR and place it in my home, place it outside, out in nature, place it over in the beach, right? So I'm thinking not just of sculpting in VR, I'm sculpting for AR as well. Um, and then there's the whole, the filters, right? Which I think are something that I want to look into more. And then just good old, 2D design. Like I can do that. I love to do that. I have a few NFTs that I created that are 2D drawings that I made, on Procreate. And so, I don't think about that too much, but just like basic drawing and design skills.
Hmm.
I'll pull on that sometimes. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I do also really want to get back into glass blowing. Um, with my move this year, it's been really hard to get into the hot shop, but I have one in mind, and I really want to get back in there and kind of polish up my skills that I haven't used in a long time and create some physical glass. Because I've been in the virtual for the past couple of years. It's time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna bring up your background. You have a background in glass blowing glass, like literally taking the molten glass out like a glob on the end of a tube, and then pushing air through it and making it kind of inflate like a balloon and twisting it into different shapes, right?
Yep, yep. That sounds about how it goes. Yeah.
I just know what I see. I've seen other people do it on smaller scales. I've seen people do it on big scales, and I believe I remember, because I'm always like very curious about everything, especially things that pique my interest. And I watched a video on how marbles are made, and glass marbles, and that was kind of a version of like a glass blowing experiment where you take the main glob, like the clear, and then you have some other color molten glass, and then you pull it through the sphere, and it creates the twists and curls inside of the sphere, which is those
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
geometric patterns and things. That's really fun to watch the process.
Yeah. It's yeah, I had no idea until I literally saw it like in class. And I was just amazed. So I was like instantly hooked into that medium. The only thing that keeps me from it is just like how far places that you can go practice are, but it's just incredible. It's so fun. It feels like you're an alchemist. Like I feel like a magician or like a wizard in there because you're like pulling it out, doing all these, sticking it back in like the furnace. Like it feels very, I don't know, romantic in the way that like I think of like smiths, ironsmiths were
Hmm.
making like armor and swords and like the Middle Ages or whatever. It's really fun.
Hmm. Yeah, it is very much like an ironsmith, or one of those people that makes the molten metal, bends it, forms it, and then it solidifies. And then once it cools, it's just like permanent shape, and that's just the way it is. So it's a reminder to all of us that things that we think cannot be changed with the right amount of heat and a catalyst, whether that be a good kick in the rear from a mentor, or being feeling like you're stuck in a situation and just becoming so frustrated with that situation that you decide to do things that you've never done before to change that situation.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's always things deeper lessons that we can learn from even the most trivial things. Like that's what I'm just noticing, because I'm a nature kind of guy. I
Oh
like to
yeah.
go outside in parks, and I watch animals. I watch the birds, and I watch how the heron fishes. The heron gets its fish, and it just stands there in the water perfectly still, doesn't create a single ripple in the water. And then when the time is right, it strikes. It's the patience. We can learn from the level of patience, the level of stillness, and the level of focus just from that.
Hmm. I love it. I didn't know that about the heroin.
Yeah, you could just watch videos. I go to a park near me frequently that has them, and I take videos of them just because it's just like nature is one of I think it's one of our best teachers, which is why
Oh yeah.
humans have copied nature in so many different ways. I was watching the way geese, they fly in their formation. It's like clockwork. But then the way they land was fascinating because it was just like a plane. They, even in their formation, they go in a circle. They go in a spiral, like maybe 2 spirals, and they go lower and lower, and then they finally land. And it reminded me, that's like a typical flight pattern when a plane comes in to land. They do a spiral or 2, copying nature.
I didn't realize.
I just,
Pretty cool.
I just realized that like just a couple of days ago. So it's just the deeper you dig, the more you find out. So what, yeah, it's mind blowing.
No,
What about,
that's weird.
yeah. What about the, is there any ever been anything that you have created or worked on, whether it be maybe, you probably have some stories related to glass, and it ended up being this epic fail and it just blew up in your face and exploded? Or it doesn't have to be an explosion. It could just be some kind of epic fail related to the creative process.
Well, I definitely like broke a few things while I was doing glass blowing. You know, like you just leave it out of the heat too long, and just to like work on it
Hmm.
before you fly. Because as how you work is you have it in the heat, you pull it out, you can do a few things to it. You have to stick it back in within like a minute.
Hmm.
And it all varies on how cold it is outside or how cold it is in the studio, right? So like
Hmm.
it might be less than a minute. It's just you have to kind of keep an eye on it. So yeah, a few times it just literally like cracks on its own just because it just got too cold. Never really like goes everywhere. It's more of like a subtle crack, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that definitely happened a few times. Um, well, the first time that I performed, actually, I had a lot of technical issues, and that almost like prevented me from doing more performances because it was just like so frustrating and in the middle of the performance, like the thing would just cut out and just stop casting, for example. So yeah, I learned that anytime that you're relying on technology to create your art or to do a performance of any kind, you have to be really prepared for like the worst to happen. You have to have a team that knows like, hey, if this happens, you need to tell me immediately so that I can, restart it on my end or I can do this, right? Um, yeah, I think that was the main thing. Like, I think I had technical issues about 3 different times the first performance I ever did.
Ooh.
And yeah, like I had to stop, go back to the DJ booth and like do something and then come back out. So it's not ideal. But I definitely learned that like, okay, I need to do this, 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 tell the person this, and then it should be okay. But there's always a lesson when things go wrong. And I think that was like one of my biggest ones. It's just like make sure the technical specs are sorted out early on.
Yeah, sooner than later. I mean, is there a general practice that you show up X amount of time prior just to make sure you just work out the technical kinks before you go on?
Yeah, yeah. So now I've been doing just like a full-on sound check and like run through
Yeah.
before most of the performances just to make sure. Um, if it's an event that has like back-to-back speakers, sometimes I won't do a run through, but definitely I'm always there early to talk to the AV person and make sure everything's, squared away and, we do at least one quick check. Yeah.
Do you have backup equipment by any chance?
Yeah, so I carry a few extra things. I've only really needed to use them twice. Most of the places that I've gone to have been really professional and have had all the equipment that I needed, but just in case, I do carry like an extra HDMI cord and HDMI to like USB-C adapter because for like the newer computers and yeah, but obviously I bring my own headset. Always make sure it's charged. That's super important too. Um, yeah,
Do you have a backup headset by any chance?
I do now. I didn't before, but now I do. So I have the MetaQuest Pro that I was lucky enough to get from Meta for the performance, and then I have my good old MetaQuest 2 that I've been performing with this whole time. So this last performance was the first one with the new one. So that was fun.
That's actually pretty, I would say consider yourself lucky, like relying on one special piece of tech for as long as you have to
Yeah.
just right to just go out there with that and just have faith that it's going to be okay, and the best you could do is just make sure it's charged, and that's it.
Pretty much. Make sure the thing is charged and the app is updated. But yeah, no, actually, crazy enough, it started having some glitches in the last couple performances. Like I don't know what it was, but like for some reason the controller, it would like click things that I wasn't clicking when I was like I would go to pick a tool and then it would just like kind of like just spaz out. And I remember my dad noticed it from one of the, he's like, I noticed it was like doing this weird thing when you were trying to do something. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. So I got it, divine timing, is what I call it. I got the new thing right on time. And
Right when you
yeah,
needed
just
it the
super
most.
grateful. Yeah, exactly. It's just like the universe provides.
And you're
Yeah.
definitely open to that, which is what I love about you, is like it almost seems like when I watch you perform, or when I watch just what you do, it doesn't seem like you're trying hard and like breaking a sweat or like purposely going out of your way to work hard. It's just kind of like you're just flowing and not like freaking out, unless you're just really good at hiding it because you can't see half your face because the headset's on. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah, I'd say that's, fairly accurate. Like I am flowing. I'm really trying to be in the moment
Yeah.
and just have fun. Like I just, I've used the tool a lot. I've used that app and I've created within it. So it's more about just being in the moment. Sometimes I even close my eyes while I'm in it. Like I'm wearing the headset and I have my eyes closed and I'm just like jamming out for just like a couple of seconds. Usually when it's like my favorite part of the song, that's usually when I'll do that. But it really is about having fun and just, you know, allowing myself to be kind of swayed by the energy I feel coming from the audience and the music, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like trying to really organically interpret that. That's the idea, It's not so much like what can I make that will look like this or like that, or what can I make that will look cool? Like it's just like what do I feel is like what I feel this vibration would look like if it could look like something, right?
Okay.
So yeah, that's that's what you're seeing, and it is really fun.
Yeah, it looks like the results that are seen on the screen. It looks like you're having fun, and I'm sure the audience does as well, watching that process. So, obviously, based on what you've said here, it doesn't seem like a lot of what you do is like I said, like going in there with a defined purpose, a set of constraints. Like I'm going to go to make this. So that begs the question: is there anything that you went in, like a VR creation session that you went in to with no agenda, and you created something amazing accidentally, and then it turned out to be like maybe something that you're known for, or something that you would prefer to like keep away in your mental file and be like, this is this piece that, you know, is really great. Now I know how to make it. I'd like to make it again.
Yeah, well, I guess the more realistic looking butterfly would be the thing, you know.
The one with the eyes on it.
I don't, yeah, the one with the eyes on it, a lot of people seem to like. So I recreated it a couple times in different colors and in like slightly different styles. Um, so yeah, I mean, I have done that a few times, where if something really resonates with people, or if it really resonates with me, I'll keep working on it. What's nice is you can take a 3D file and then, as you're working on something, you can be like, hey, you know what would look really good? That one other sculpture that I did the other day. And you can actually pull it in. Like you just go to import model and you can import one of your other models that you've created. And then you
Hmm.
bring it in there and then you can take stuff out, and most of my things are made up of a lot of individual pieces. So I can take out certain pieces, create something new, and then keep certain elements of the old one, right, that I really liked. So I've done that a few times. Yeah, sometimes, so for example, for my ETH Mexico performance, so that one was one, I was invited by ETH Global to perform at their event, and they wanted some specific symbology, like they kind of wanted like an ETH symbol in it in there, and
Okay.
something to relate to Mexico, right? And so I ended up creating like a mock-up, or like essentially I practiced before the performance, right? So that one I went into it very like in my head thinking, okay, I want to create a abstract butterfly that looks somewhat monarch, like a monarch, because monarchs are one of the symbols of Mexico, and then
Okay.
of the family, right? So it was perfect. And then I said I want to create with these Mexican flag colors, the red, green, and white. And then I have to have like an ETH symbol. So I kind of went in there thinking about that already. And, you guys can check out what I actually created. Um, but yeah, so there's been a few instances where I go in there specifically thinking like this is what I'm gonna make. And in those times, sometimes I'll bring in reference images, which is something that's really fun that you can do. Is you just like have a folder of images and you drop it
Hmm.
into your virtual environment. It's like literally like if you had a poster right next to you of what you want to draw or like sculpt, and I love that
Yes.
feature. So yeah, it just depends on what I'm making. And I've done a few derivatives too for projects where, they wanted me to make a PFP or like one of their characters into a 2D, or from 2D to 3D. And so I've done that a few times. And so obviously there I bring in the reference image and I use that to, get it as close as I can. Um, so yeah, it just depends on the project. But for performance, that I try to keep it as abstract as possible.
Okay. Okay. All good. All good there. So the whole recurring theme, like if I were to give, even though you have a full name, if I were to give you a middle name, it would be Flow, because literally that's what you're doing constantly in your life. It doesn't seem to be like so locked in and rigid like most people.
Hmm.
You seem to be open to more possibilities than most people, and open to exploring things where most people. So this, like in the context of creating things or making a creation, most people, like one of my mentors, Paul Harris, he said, people, we have this preconceived framework of how we think everything works and is supposed to look. And so we make all these assumptions based on that. And then we assume, therefore, that some things are possible and some things aren't possible. And sometimes, actually, most of the time, our assumptions are really wrong. And it's just due to our own limiting beliefs that we self imposed.
Yeah.
And they're just boxing themselves in without even knowing. And if they could just like let go of the dogma for just a little bit, they'll actually surprise themselves of what they can create or what they can do.
No, I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people um, do get just conditioned by society. I mean, including me, it's like every day is a new opportunity to either do what society has conditioned you to do or to do
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do, what creatively, satisfies you, right? Like,
Yeah.
or to just not live creatively at all, which is, the way a lot of people live. And
Yeah.
I think everyone's creative. I think everyone's an artist in some way or another. Um, but whether we tap into that or not, I think is what makes all the difference, at least for me. And I just think, if we only have one life, we better hurry up and not waste any time because there's only so much time you have to carry out all these plans and these ideas. And as an
Yeah.
artist, as a creative person, I have ideas all the time. And I think if I'm not, taking care of my mental well-being, then I should be focused on creating, right? It's either, family time, mental health, relaxation, or it's creation to me. Like that's kind of how I live my life. Because I have like so many sketchbooks. I don't know if you're a sketchbook type of person,
Mm-hmm.
but I have full of ideas, like ideas for full-on shows, exhibitions that, I'd like to do and that I've already forgotten. And thank God I used to write them down more, right? But it's just like, when will I ever have time to do all these things if I don't start thinking outside the box? And that goes in terms of like where I live, how I live every day, where I travel, where I choose not to travel, just the different things that I choose not to do. It just makes all the difference. And I think for a long time, I always thought like being an artist is just not a thing. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
possibility for me. Um, and I've just let go of that belief now because it doesn't help and it's just simply not true. Anyone can be an artist in this day and age if you just try your absolute best, tell everyone, create a community of supporters, and just people that will like send opportunities your way, like you, Shaun. Thank you for, having me on your podcast.
That's the way it works. It's letting go of the limiting belief. And I had to let go of my limiting belief that I couldn't even do something like this show. And here I am. Here we are. And it's actually,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey for me, just meeting incredible people, learning from the most amazing creative people, and inspiring me. And hopefully, in turn, these conversations will get people's mind in a place where you could just open up a little bit more and just understand that there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5, but there's a lot more outside the 9 to 5 than most people think. And that's why you're here on the show to share a little peek behind that curtain of what that's like.
absolutely. Yeah, and I've had a 9 to 5, so I sympathize. And I understand that there are some pros to that as well. There's nothing quite like having a steady stream of income,
It's
right?
true.
And so taking the road less traveled, and taking a chance on being a business owner and setting your own schedule and all that, like it's got its pros and cons. So it's always greener on the other side, but I feel very grateful for the road that I've taken at this point, and yeah, just hoping for the best and for you as well. I know you're, like being a professional magician is not on the list of like top most secured career paths, just like
Correct.
artists. So
That's
it's,
correct.
you know, but you're out there doing it.
I'm making it happen. I'm making magic. I try to let go of one more piece, if it's a piece or maybe a whole limiting belief, a little bit at a time. Maybe
Mm,
it's one day at a time, 1 week at a time, maybe a
that's right.
month. And then eventually there's some things I want to hold on to, but then it's, especially with, since 2020, the 2020 and moving forward has just taught me, I'm sure it's taught you and hopefully others, about the importance of being able to go with the flow and being able to let go of what you were used to. Because with the incredible rate of fast change nowadays, it's like you can't really hang on to old patterns or old ways of thinking, because those probably
Hmm.
won't even work anymore due to the insane rate of change right now.
Yeah. No, I like, like I mentioned, I think earlier, was just like life is so short and you really cannot predict what will happen next year. 2020 certainly took me by surprise, and changed a lot of my plans. I was planning on having a full-time job in a face-to-face environment with people in March of 2020, which was when everything shut down. And so just going from, like, okay, so now my whole plan has to change. Um,
Yeah.
and that was just one way, right, of to give an example, right? But yeah, I think that also taught me, so many people we lost in those 2 years, and, not just COVID, but other things.
Hmm.
And that also was kind of like this memento mori, right? Like an art term where it's just like, remember you're going to die. And not necessarily like to be so grim, but to inspire you to make the best of every day, to not let your dreams go unchased. At least chase them, at least try, right? Because just tomorrow is not promised, for anyone. So yeah, that's kind of the thing that's always driven me. Yeah,
Wise
that's all I
words.
can say.
No, that's great. That's great. So here's the last kind of like lightning round of questions as we wrap things up. What inspired you to be a maker?
I'd say mainly my grandmother. Um, she's made so many cool things for me over the years. She made me a Cinderella dress out of scratch for my third birthday. I remember
Oh,
she made like so many things, like so many dress. Oh, a Pocahontas dress for my Pocahontas birthday party. She just, the butterfly frames in our house, the
yeah.
butterfly windows, the coffee table, like it was impossible not to be inspired by her. So, yeah.
Okay. And who do you look up to currently in the maker space, the creative space?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a lot of people I look up to. It's kind of hard to pick just one,
Okay.
but
First few that come to your mind.
I really admire my sister. She's an artist as well,
Oh,
and she's just incredible. Isa la Artista is her handle if you guys want to look her up. I
how do you
really
spell
look
that?
up to my friend. It's ISALARTISTA. Yeah. I'll send it to you so you can
Okay.
put it in the show notes.
Isa la Hista?
Um, Isa la Artista, yeah, which
Hista
just
la
means like
Artista.
Isa,
Got it.
yeah, Isa the artist, yeah.
Okay.
So we're Mexican. I don't know if I ever mentioned that part, but I was born in
Yes.
Mexico, so try to incorporate the Spanish I know where we can.
That's
Let's
great.
see. Also, really look up to Jen Joy Roybal. She's the CEO of Searchlight, and they're an organization that helps artists find opportunities to exhibit. And they've just done incredible with her leaderships, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful artist as well. So yeah, I'd say those two for now, but I just there's so many people that I look up to, and it's
Yeah.
just really, really cool community to be part of.
It sure is. Once you start, the rabbit hole runs deep. Once you find it and once you go down it, it's just like, wow, the possibilities are endless. There's these creative people that you've never even heard of that are just mind blowing with their art. And yeah, so that's nice. That's nice that you keep it in the
Absolutely.
family with the mention of your sister and just the lineage of how the art has passed along, and you and your sister are carrying the torch at this point, right?
Yeah, and our other family members are also very creative,
Oh,
so it's not just us, but
okay.
we're pretty close. So she's always top of mind.
Okay. And who do you, lastly, not who, we already went over that. What resources would you recommend for anyone interested in getting into the creative art space? Are there any websites? Are there any books, videos? And actually, as far as resources go, the blockchain, if people are interested in cryptocurrency, since this is such a timely topic, where would you recommend people go to learn more?
Yeah, so I mean, for creative endeavors in general, I'd say a few things. There's Procreate. It's a pretty, um, I think, reasonable price app that you can get for your phone or for your iPad. And that's just like very basic. You can draw pretty much anything, but you could also get really intricate and make some really cool paintings even on there. So
Okay.
I would try that. There's also if you want to try AI art, which is something that's been on the rise in the past, I'd say this year, I would try OpenAI. Let me see how you spell it. OpenAI.com is the
Okay.
tool that I like. They have a new tool called Dolly, which is an AI system where you can create realistic images just from a description. So
Mm,
if you're a new artist, you can use this to just think out loud your ideas in a way. So say you're like, okay, I want to see, an orange with a cat sitting next to it. As a new artist, it might be kind of hard to just get right into Procreate and start drawing that.
hmm.
If you put this prompt into Dolly, it'll give you a few iterations of what that may look like. And from there, you can take that image and say, oh, okay, I kind of like how that is angled or how that's, the proportions of that. Let me try that on my drawing. And
Mm.
so it can just be a really cool tool. And let's see, for crypto, I'd say ethglobal.com. I believe it's .com anyway. They have ethglobal.com. They
Okay.
have these guides that they created where they go over everything that has to do with ETH. So from top to bottom, how it relates to ENS, how developers interact with it, like
Mm.
everything about it is there and it's free. And you could even earn NFTs for completing these like study guides that they made. So ETH Global guides would be the best resources, I think.
Okay. And when you said Dali, we're talking about Salvador Dali, like Dali, I'm going to assume, or
No, it's Dalle.
oh, okay,
Uh,
totally different.
yeah, yeah, but I mean maybe they took the name inspiration from Dolly. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So
Okay, okay. I was just thinking
pretty fun
Salvador,
tool.
yeah, Salvador Dali with surrealism and just taking random things and meshing them together. That's kind of what this software is doing. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
And I'm
okay.
sure you can make some cool Dolly inspired artworks on there if you wanted to.
I bet people can. So check out those resources, guys. And finally, just as we bring things to full circle here with Creatress, where can my viewers and listeners find out more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my Instagram or my Twitter would be the best places that is at Creatress Art on both, CreatressArt. So Creatress Art. And from my Twitter, I'm posting always, like my newest artworks, my upcoming events. I have my link tree on both of them, and there you can find my sculpture gallery, which I highly recommend you go into. It's got about 10 of my sculptures there in 3D, and you can look at them up close and
Oh,
from
nice.
all sides. Yeah, my NFTs are linked there. Past interviews, this interview will be linked there at some point. So
Yay.
yeah, it's all there.
Awesome. Check it out. Check out Creatress online, on very active on Instagram and Twitter. You know how to find her. There were links that were displayed below that you guys will see if you're watching the final version of this, not on the live stream. I'm just doing this live stream to those that want to see how this happens live in the moment. And this has been another mind-expanding chat. We've got our creative gears turning. At least they're turning in my head right now after hearing all of these things. And yeah, I just want to thank you, Creatress, for taking the time out of your busy butterfly day that you live to jump on the Making Magic podcast.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Shaun. It was fun.
Awesome. Well, you guys have been watching and listening to another episode of the Making Magic podcast. If you're just enjoying the sound of our voices on any one of the popular podcast apps, feel free to follow the show. Follow me along for the journey. I'm here to inspire people to think in new ways, to get you out of that stuck same framework thought pattern. That's why I have amazing people, creative guests like Creatress Sarai Mora on this show. So if you're watching this video on YouTube, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know what to do. Turn on the notification bell to stay up to date when I release my next interview. These are updated weekly, so I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you all on another episode of the Making Magic podcast.